Hello viewers and welcome to this new video. Today we are in a new ship tutorial video, and as you guys chose from the community tab, we are going to build a cruiser in a Russian style. So we are gonna need a lot of bricks for the ship, especially because this is gonna be quite big and quite complex, since I'm almost gonna build it completely electronics set with. So we start with the mechanical part, with the wheels and some gears. This part is very important for the movement. It is not gonna have insanely good movements, but it is gonna be quite fast and maneuverable, and that is very good. Make sure you have the wheels that have enough grip in the ground, or else it will slip on the ground and not even move. I have had a lot of problems with that, and I finally found the correct way to grip in the ground without the wheels just turning without gripping on the ground. We are gonna build an L systems with the gears, as the motors are not gonna have enough space to go place horizontally in the ship, else we're gonna put them basically in a vertical way through the length of the ship instead of the width. A cruiser is not very large in size, but it is quite long, so we're gonna have enough space definitely in the length of the ship instead on the width. We're gonna place two large motors instead of the usual normal motors. These motors have a much better performance and power, so I recommend you using those motors. We are gonna need a lot of bricks, especially 2x4, in this case white bricks with 1 stud high, and a decent amount of 1 width bricks, since especially for the hull that I'm building right now, you are gonna have a lot of space to put in stuff. And using the 2x4 bricks that I have a lot, you're gonna make the hull also very resistant and pretty solid. Through the hull we're gonna build also some supports for the hull itself and the superstructure. We're gonna place also some slopes and tabs for the bottom part of the hull that I'm gonna build in the black color. This is basically the waterline, and we can go in placing many 2 and 1 width bricks, especially of course the 2x4s that are basically my favorite kind of bricks to build with, since they are pretty easy to find and pretty easy to use. Going on, this is not an especially hard thing to do, since the biggest part and the most complex one of the hull has already been built, that is the motor parts. And so we just have to go on placing bricks and supports. Actually, supports are very important, so make sure to have lots of support bricks and plates, because they are very useful. I'm gonna use also 2 of these train bottom plates. I don't know how to call them, but they are definitely useful, and especially in this case where we have a very long ship, I'm gonna put it inside with some supports on the actual bottom part of this huge plate, as the plate is actually 2/3 of a brick high. Instead, I want it to be a full brick high, so I have to put some plates below it. Then we continue on building the hull. At this point, we pretty much have a good enough start and we have built one side of the central part of the ship and the actual central part of the ship. Now we have to build the other side of the central part. We are using a big 8x16 plate that in this case is green, but you can place whatever color you want. You're not gonna even see it. This plate especially I'm using for the battery box that I'm gonna place right there. Is not the definitive place to put it, but as you know, in that plate is gonna get placed the battery box. Then we continue to the bow of the ship, that is the front, and we're gonna put some 2x4 bricks that are very good and very easy to use. Some supports, in this case I'm gonna use red supports, and some other one width bricks that are useful to make the shape of the ship actually good and realistic, because of course Lego have lots of angles and polygons, but if we want to do that as smooth as possible, we really have to keep attention on what we place and where we place. In this case I'm doing a quite long bow, since a cruiser usually is very long, and having a long bow it's actually a good thing to have, because it increases the speed of the ship, and by a lot. The hull is gonna have two layers. The first one is the basic layer, and the second one is gonna be slightly it's gonna have a slight offset compared to the bottom one, so we can have a smoother hull. As you can see, I'm placing the bricks of the second layer a bit off respected to the first layer. We can do pretty much the same thing with the stern, so the back part of the ship. We still are building the hull, and it is quite easy to build, but not everyone can build it, and I myself cannot do it extremely well as others might do. But this is quite an easy build, and I want to focus this project on the actual shape of the ship, and keeping it as simple as possible, while putting in, of course, the motors that are basically the main feature of the ship we're gonna build. If you want, you can decide to not to place the motors. They are quite optional, but if you want, if you have those, it is gonna be quite interesting. Also because it is something different. If you look on YouTube, there are very few people that do this. I myself did not find any other than me doing something like this. I did a ship similar like this probably 1.5 years ago. I don't remember right now. It was called the Kirishima, and it was pretty cool. It was a very simple build, but much bigger than this one, and the maneuverability and the realistic movements of the ship were actually very good. So go check out that video. And about the ship we are building, I'm gonna build the stern down to the very back of the ship, and as you can see, it came up quite smoothly and easy. As the final part of the hull is gonna be putting in some supports that are very important for the superstructure, since we do not want the ship to fall apart, and we want all the bricks to get placed very well. Now, since I want to make the ship a little bit more interesting, I wanna lift up the bow of the ship, putting it one brick higher than the actual hull. So, in a quite smooth way, I'm gonna place plates first in a 1/3 layer. Then I'm gonna add another layer, so I'm gonna make it basically 2/3 high. And then finally I'm gonna put a brick that is gonna be 1 brick high, of course. Now it's time for the main deck, the part above the hull, where is gonna get placed all the superstructure. This part is quite important too, because it is basically the point where the hull and the superstructure come together. And since in the superstructure are gonna be the highest amount of details in the actual ship, it is gonna be an important part. Also because this deck is not gonna be smooth and completely covered up, since we still have the motors to put in, and even though the motors are actually inside the hull, the battery box is not high enough to stick inside the hull, and so we are gonna put the superstructure above the battery box, keeping it part of the superstructure and making it like a camouflage of it. Same thing for the IR receiver that is gonna be placed basically inside the superstructure. Continuing on the deck, as you can see, I am putting many plates in various ways to basically make a cheaper deck, as I not waste many plates that I'm probably gonna use later for the superstructure itself. That is gonna be a quite hard part, since it's composed by many different bricks. I am still putting many big plates, as I want this ship to be quite strong and not break apart. But I am also using smaller bricks, because I want the cables of the motor to come out from the deck, while covering the sides where we are gonna see actually the deck of the ship. Most of it is gonna get covered by turrets, details, and the actual superstructures, but we can leave some part open because the superstructure can do that, and so we're gonna take advantage of it. Now we are placing the battery box very close to the motor, and we are gonna use some of these shaped bricks that usually are used for wings of airplanes to actually put the battery box in a location where we can work with it and that does not interfere with the rest of the ship. I mean, we can still build around it while the deck is covered. I am now building another part of the ship, another piece of the deck. As you can see, I'm still using many supports. Again, these are very important for the ship strength itself. I'm still placing big and small plates. Also, notice that at some point I decided to change the color of the deck from dark gray to light gray, and then again to dark gray, because I wanted the ship to look also realistic. If you don't know, many ships have this grade of gray in the basically the bow and the stern, that are different kind of gray compared to the central hull. Sometimes it is the same gray, but sometimes it's also reversed. The light gray might be also on the bow instead of the center of the ship. On the bow, I am placing other details, since having details on this kind of builds that come up quite sized, I mean quite big. I wanna put anchors on the bow, so I'm gonna put some details around and cover up the yellow brick I placed with some slab bricks that have I don't know how they call grills or whatever, so they look realistic for the anchors. The anchors are a chain with an L brick plate on one side. I'm gonna stick the anchor in a brick and take it to the to where I wanna put the actual anchor coming out from the hole. I'm gonna put also one green and red light detail on top of it. Going back to the actual deck of the ship, I'm gonna put other supports, and here I wanna put some plates because again I wanna change again the design of the hull and the deck. I think that it is a very important part. I might have already said that, but I'm saying it again. Having the same thing repetitively on the ship is gonna make the ship quite boring, and it feels like it is out of details and basically empty, and I do not want that. I already had such problems with it. Many of my old models have had this problem, but now that I have a bit more experience, I hope, I'm putting various bricks. Also, you can do this if you do not have enough bricks to build the actual deck and the actual hull. So by now, basically, the hull is completed, and you actually can drive it around. Anyway, now we are going to build the guns and the superstructure. Starting from the guns, I'm gonna use a triple gun design that I already used on some of my model. It is a quite simple design actually, but it works always well since even though it is simple, it is quite actually realistic and it has a good shape, so of course I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna build 3 of these kind of turrets, and I'm gonna put one 2x2 moving around circle brick. I don't know how it's called again, but one of these, so I can turn the turret around. I'm gonna start placing one on the back of the ship and then putting some details around it already, because I already want the ship to look cool and to have some kind of details that already reminds me that I have to put details on the ship. One big details I'm gonna put is this 4x4 plate with 2x4 slabs on top. Now I'm also gonna build some more guns. This, for example, is a secondary guns with one gun barrel. I'm gonna put 2 of those in the design, and I'm gonna build also another design that is basically the same gun but with a bit more details, since the first one is a bit smoother, and this one I'm gonna use circular bricks and more detailed plates to build it, because one design is just not enough. So I'm gonna build 2 designs. Another design I'm gonna build, of course, because more guns is better, is one single barrel 2x2 brick with a Technic one long stud. That is basically the brick itself looks like a turret, so of course I'm gonna use it. And also I'm gonna put torpedo launchers in the ship, since Even though not every cruiser has a torpedo launcher, I want to put those because it's a very interesting gimmick to have in a ship and it's quite useful. So I'm gonna use some 2x6 plates with some details on top. And now it is time to build the actual superstructure. So using many 2x4 bricks, I'm gonna make the design and the outline of the superstructure I want, covering most of the deck that I planned before and going around all the power functions and the electrics I placed before. For example, around the battery box, I'm placing one with bricks instead of two with bricks, because it's better and it is easier to build like this. I'm already putting some more details. For example, I'm putting some 1x2 bricks on the side of a 2x8 so I can put turrets on top. They are like barbettes for secondary guns. I'm gonna put the torpedo launchers too on the sides of the ship, since I have two torpedo launchers, one each side. And to cover up the superstructure in between the torpedo launchers, I'm gonna build a kinda shaped design that allows all the torpedoes to rotate smoothly and without getting stuck on the superstructure itself. We want the torpedoes to rotate as they are really armed and they can have a good angle of shooting, so having those turning is a decent thing. I'm gonna continue in with the superstructure with 1 and 2 with bricks with white color, because it's the main color I'm using for the ship, even though it is not historically accurate. But for example, in a North Sea where there are ice and icebergs, that is kinda useful. I'm gonna close the front of the superstructure with 2x4 bricks and the turret on top. And now I'm gonna place the IR receiver. That is gonna get placed with a 2x6 plate below it, since I want some cables to pass under the receiver. I'm gonna put the motor cables connected to the servo, to the IR receiver, and then to the battery box. So keep an eye on this, since watch the controller colors and be sure to place the right motor on the right part of the receiver if you want the ship to go the right way instead of going around the opposite. I'm gonna continue with the superstructure. Now I'm placing a round plate where I'm gonna put another turret, the last of the 3 turrets. The ship is gonna have 2 turrets on the front, as usual, as most ships actually. And I'm gonna now continue with the back part, where I'm not gonna build other turrets, but I'm gonna place secondary guns, the ones that I already built. So to place those I need a platform. I'm using these curved bricks that look pretty cool, and I'm gonna use those as it gives enough space in the deck to place many details. I'm now placing some other details on the front of the superstructure where I want the conning tower. Later on I'm gonna build a better conning tower. For now I'm just gonna place another secondary gun on top of this kind barbette looking thing. That actually represents a barbette, if you ask. Now I'm gonna place 3 of the secondary guns we built before on the back of the superstructure in a configuration where 2 of those are supposed to shoot also in the front instead only on the back, and one is only shooting on the back. I'm continuing with the superstructure, putting more 1x2 and 2x4 bricks, and also other kind of bricks, but that's not important. The good thing about the ship is that you have to make it look cool. The cooler it is, the better. And even though the main design and the main feature of the ship are the motors and the fact that it can actually move, having a cool ship is also a very good point. This is a ship tutorial, by the way. And so I'm gonna go back where I placed the 1x2 bricks close to the 1x8. As I said, I'm gonna put turrets right there. I'm gonna place 4 secondary guns. And I'm already starting to add smaller details. For example, on the sides of the superstructure close to the torpedo tubes, I'm gonna place some curved bricks to add decent detail, and some other slabs close to the IR receiver. I'm placing other slabs and plates close to the battery box, since it has a slight offset compared to the rest of the superstructure, and I want it to have a camouflage inside the superstructure, so you can't see it, but you can still use it. I'm gonna cover up the part where all the cables are visible, so for now that part is basically complete and we can build over it. We have to arrive basically at the point where you don't see any electronics except of the top of the IR receiver. That is the thing that we are interested in, where that is basically the antenna and where we want to point our radio controller at. So now we can actually build our conning tower, putting some 2x4 bricks stuck on top of each other, and some 2x1 bricks simulating the windows that are actually transparent. Putting on some more details and going up with the decks. For example, here I'm using 4x6 shaped brick. You can see it, I don't know how to describe it, but it has the slopes on the side. And after that I'm gonna continue on with the funnel, that also is a very important aspect of the ship. I'm not gonna build an extremely detailed design, but it still has its details and it looks cool, so a good point for that. On the top of the funnel I'm using some railing bricks, I don't know how to call them, but it's that, and it really simulates a real funnel. I really like the design like that, and it really looks like a real funnel of a warship. Going on with the conning tower, I'm placing more and more bricks on top of each other, simulating a good height of the ship, though I'm gonna upgrade it in a few minutes, as you can see, as you're gonna see later actually. On the top of everything I'm gonna put some other bricks, more detailed, for example a gun director. Needed, of course, to direct the guns, because you have the guns and you have to mount a system to basically aim them. So, continuing on, we can add as many details as we can, and I really like placing more and more details to make the ship look cooler. usually after I finish a ship, I leave that somewhere in my laboratory where I have all my Legos, and every time I go looking at the ship, I always find a brick that makes me put it in the ship. So the ship, every time I look at it, it has more details because of the ideas that came in my mind. Then we can continue on with the superstructure on the back, on the top of the battery box. As you can see now, it is almost entirely covered up. That is a very good thing, since we are almost at the end of the superstructure. And even though it might seem that there still are some bricks missing, we are almost done. Though we still have to place a bit more of details because we do not want to leave the ship as it is right now. Now I'm gonna build the system for the actual switch of the battery box, so we can switch on and off the ship without breaking apart everything on the superstructure. We have this antenna that is placed on the top of the switch, and with a round brick that has a hole in the middle, we can pass through a Technic axle and we can start putting details on the top. For example, I'm using 5 and 6 and 4 actually stud Technic bricks, and yeah, it is a really cool and functional detail having something like that. Unfortunately, it does not look very cool and we can still work on it, but for now I'm gonna leave it as it is. I'm just gonna put something to stabilize it, but later on I'm gonna upgrade it, so don't worry about that. We can leave right there the antenna, and we can continue on with the rest of the superstructure. I'm putting more and more 2x4 bricks. Now you'll learn how useful they are. I used so many of those and they really opened my mind because they really work with everything. I'm putting the second conning tower that is pointed towards the stern, and on top of it I'm putting similar details to the one that is pointing the bow, that is the main superstructure, the main conning tower actually. But this time I'm doing it a little bit smaller and with some different details, just simpler. Also, I'm gonna upgrade that later again, so if it does not look very cool, don't worry, I'm gonna change it. Now it's another part of the ship, because this part is all about putting details. Details are a very important part. Look right here how the bow is completely empty. Also the superstructure was like that, but by putting very few bricks, not even 10 bricks I think I placed, it is much better. But just look at the bow, that right now it's completely empty, and with around 10 details, 10 bricks that I'm gonna put, it's gonna completely change and look much better. Just by putting some details around the turret, it is gonna look better, and we are gonna make it look even better. So everything you have, 2x1 plates, angled bricks, 1x1 studs, everything you can put on it. It probably looks cool and it adds volume on the ship, and I really think that the more details you put, the cooler it gets, and it is always like that. Chances are that you build a ship and you don't like it because of the actual small details, than of the actual ship itself. In reality, right now I'm gonna change the superstructure, the main conning tower, as I said, because I did not like it. And it happens, I mean, not only because of the lack of details this happens, but also because there might be some building issues. So I'm gonna lift up with a layer of plates and a few bricks just to make it bigger and higher, because it was definitely too short for the kind of ship I want to propose, that if you don't remember, is about a Russian ship, a Russian cruiser actually, heavy cruiser if we want to add something. As we did for the main superstructure, the main conning tower, we are gonna upgrade also the second conning tower in a similar way, so lifting it up, adding a few more decks and a few more details. This time I'm gonna remove the gun director I placed on top before and place another one a little bit easier, but that definitely looks better. As I said before, I'm gonna upgrade also the antenna that is the switch for the ship. And since it is not very stable, I'm gonna put another plate on top of it that hopefully makes it more stable. And as I did before, this is basically the same thing. I'm putting the Technic bricks, the Technic axle, inside this thing and adapting the bricks that we have now placed for the rest of the ship. So finally now the ship is complete. I want you guys to write me in the comment what you would like to name the ship, likely a Russian name, because the ship is inspired by something Russian. But as you can see, the ship is done. Looking at the exterior, we can see all the details we placed. Definitely make it much better than it was without details. Basically all the turret can turn except for the two ones that are universal super firing turrets on the sides of the ship. The one with the more complex design, those cannot turn very well, but that's not a problem. And now let's go to the main part of the ship, that is the moving technique. This feature is very important, and it is kind of cool to see, because the speed is quite high and the maneuverability is just insane. It does not look like a real-life ship at all while doing those maneuvers. But going around your house with a ship, with a Lego ship, 100% Lego, that you can drift on doing memes, yeah, it's kind of cool. And this actually was a very interesting design to build. It took me a huge amount of time, by the way, because of the small size of the ship and the small space I had to place the motors. I really had to think hard for it, but at the end I did not take as long as I expected, and it was not as difficult as I thought. The ship looks cool and works very good. I'm really satisfied with how the ship came up. It might not be the best creation I've made so far. For example, the battleship that could be radio controlled were much better than this. but this is definitely more maneuverable and probably more fun to play with. Just a thing, if you wanna check if the ship is on and off, on the front of the conning tower there is the IR receiver, and pushing it and releasing it, you can see the light that goes on and off. On means that the battery box is on, and when the light is off, of course, is the other way around. As you can see, it's pretty easy to maneuver the ship because of the technique I used to work with it. The two motors placed one on the front and one on the back of the gearbox in that small space really makes the ship maneuverable because of the two single motors and the two single wheels, of course. You can actually do 360 degrees maneuver. That is definitely not realistic, but it looks cool, and going around your house, as I said, it's much easier like that. So that is pretty much it. If you have any question about this ship, you can write that on the comment. Also, remember to write on the comment for me, what do you want the name for the ship? And without anything left to say, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you actually enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.